From legendary writer-director John Hughes comes the 1987 Thanksgiving comedy classic that has surely become an annual watch for families across America, starring comedy giants Steve Martin and John Candy, and featuring an array of wild characters and insane antics. Let's take a look at Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I'm to drive you to Wichita to catch a train?
Yeah, we'd appreciate it.
Train don't run out of Wichita. Unless you're a hog or a cattle.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is one of those classic 80s movies that has absolutely transcended what it means to be a holiday film, and is one that, like many other films from this point in time, I have been watching for literally my entire life. I mean, it really is a part of my DNA, and Thanksgiving really wouldn't be the same without an annual viewing of the film. It's as much a part of Thanksgiving as Home Alone is for Christmas, or other films like that have just become monumental staples of their respective holidays. For as far back as I can remember, through the good times and the bad, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles has always been something we've watched every year, whether simply during the month of November, on Thanksgiving itself, or simply on Thanksgiving Eve, which is what it's become these past 10 years or so, the highlight and main event of Thanksgiving Eve. It just puts me in a great mood, you know? There's stuff cooking in the kitchen, pies, casseroles, dishes we don't have time to make on Thanksgiving itself, the house is full of delicious aromas, the ambiance is in full effect, and it's just a great way to conclude Thanksgiving Eve and lead into a fantastic Thanksgiving Day. And it really gets no better than Steve Martin and John Candy, am I right?
Yeah, sure, great.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles tells the story of businessman Neil Page trying to get home to Chicago for Thanksgiving from a long and tedious business trip in New York City. What should be a routine flight back home ends up becoming a days-long adventure of mishaps and, well, misadventures, all because of bad weather canceling all of the flights out, leading Neil to team up with the hilarious and larger-than-life Del Griffith, played by John Candy, a man Neil Page doesn't exactly enjoy being around. But in an attempt to simply get home as fast and as efficient as possible, a sort of symbiotic relationship begins, showcasing the two men trying to help one another reach their own respective destinations, but encountering dozens of insane characters, those aforementioned misadventures, and a slew of bad luck on their many modes of transportation on display throughout the film's runtime, hence the title, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I'll see you in Chicago, John.
You'll never make the city.
Over the course of the movie, Del and Neil argue, fight, and really get to know one another, all the while doing some much-needed introspection on themselves as human beings. Laughs are had, tears are shed, and all in all, the film concludes on a high note, with Neil and Del, on top of everything that has happened, seemingly becoming lifelong friends. It's a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, and is definitely one for the books. Certainly one that neither Del nor Neil would ever forget.
I'd like you to meet a friend of mine.
Hello, Mr. Griffith.
Hello, Mrs. Page.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles just works. It fires on every cylinder and functions perfectly as a piece of comedic cinema, while at the same time balancing itself with some truly heartfelt drama, some memorable scenes and characters, some absolutely perfect lines of dialogue, and some of the wildest antics and mishaps ever seen in a film like this. John Candy and Steve Martin are absolutely at the top of their game here as well. I mean, I don't think the movie would have been even half as good had it not been for the perfect casting of these two, and I think their dramatic chops really have a chance to shine in this film, in ways that they don't have the chance to in many of their other projects. I mean, there's some truly heart-wrenching stuff in this film, and the emotional impact and resonance of these characters can be felt right through the screen.
You want to hurt me? Go right ahead if it makes you feel any better. I'm an easy target. Yeah, you're right. I talk too much. I also listen too much. I could be a cold-hearted cynic like you. But I don't like to hurt people's feelings. Well, you think what you want about me. I'm not changing. I like me. My wife likes me. My customers like me. Because I'm the real article. What you see is what you get.
You believe these characters, and you believe in them as well. You want to see them evolve. You want to see them overcome this obstacle and that obstacle. You want them to resolve their differences, and you want them to become lifelong friends. I mean, let's face it, we all wish we knew Del and Neil in real life, and I would go as far as to say that these two are one of the top 20 most memorable duos in film history, and yes, I really did just say that, and I stand by that statement 100%. Planes and Trains is well written, fantastically directed, and I think it's one of John Hughes' best films, which is saying a lot because his filmography is pretty much all primo content. But there's just something about this film, it's just intoxicating. And like Home Alone to Christmas, the perfect film for Thanksgiving. The soundtrack is great too, both the score itself and the contemporary soundtrack. I know a lot of people take issue with the music in this movie for whatever reason, but I have to defend it in every way. It sounds like the film in the most perfectly complimentary way possible. The pacing is great, the acting is great, the cinematography is brilliant, the editing is punctual and perfect. It just flows. This movie flows. I look forward to watching it each and every year, and not only does this film never get old, but it actually still gets better with every watch. After all these years, the film still somehow manages to get better with every single viewing. So, with that said, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is not a perfect 10 out of 10, but actually beyond a perfect score, transcending a perfect score. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a holy grail.
Start by wiping that fucking dumbass smile off your rosy fucking cheeks.